5 years ago, my blood work and biomarkers already put me into the top 15% of health among the general population. That's above average. I exercised, I ate a pretty decent healthy diet, and I followed all the fundamentals. But here's the problem. A few markers were actually small red flags that if I were to ignore, would have slowly chipped away at my health over the next few decades. By slowly tinkering with my routines and lifestyle, I've now managed to take myself into the top 1% of health, based on hundreds of biomarkers. I didn't achieve this by doing the same thing over and over again that everyone else is doing. I read thousands of studies, tested things out, and it worked. In this video, I'm gonna break down exactly what I did to take myself from above average to excellent peak health. You can use these same strategies on your health starting today. Here are some of the biggest changes I've had. 5 years ago, I weighed about 85 to 86 kilograms. I was still lean, but now I'm even leaner at 79 to 80 kilograms. My visceral fat has decreased by about 89%, from 500 grams to 54 grams. My ApoB has decreased by 52%, from 120 milligrams per deciliter to 58. My hemoglobin A1C down 9%, from 5.4% to 4.9%. My homocysteine is down 66%, from 15 to 5 micromoles per liter. And my VO2 max is up 32%, from the low 50s to mid 60s. Alright, let's start with the changes I've made to my exercise. When it comes to VO2 max and cardiovascular fitness, then I don't have data from earlier than 2023. But to be honest, my VO2 max was probably lower when I tested it in 2023, because I wasn't doing that much cardio before that. In July 2023, my VO2 max was 53.1 milliliter per kilogram per minute, which is good, but not superior. In November 2023, my VO2 max had increased to 66 milliliters per kilogram per minute, which is elite level for all age groups. The way I increased my VO2 max so significantly was by doing a lot more cardio than I was doing before. Today my VO2 max is around 60, because I'm doing a little bit less cardio than I was doing 2 years ago. When it comes to fitness and body composition, then around 5 to 6 years ago, I wanted to build some more muscle and strength, which is why I was quote-unquote bulking. At my heaviest, I was 88 kilograms, and at 85 kilograms, I was already visibly lean, so I never got super fat. You could definitely see from my face back then that I was bulking. You can even check out some of the old videos from 5 years ago. My face was a lot fatter. Now, you do need to gain some mass to build a significant amount of muscle and strength, and I did get significantly stronger during this period because I was eating a lot more calories. But bulking and gaining a lot of weight over the long term can have negative effects on your blood work and visceral fat especially. That's why I stopped bulking around 2022. Because I was already satisfied with the muscle gains that I made, and I prioritized long-term health and long-term optimal blood work. Now I'm also a bit weaker than I was at 86 kilograms. My squat record was 180 kilograms back then, and bench press was 140 kilograms. But now it's 160 kilogram squat and 135 kilogram bench. Relative to my body weight, my muscle is more dense and higher quality, because I have less body fat. This year in 2025, I went through a mini bulk, but I didn't gain nearly as much weight as I did in the past. I went from 79 kilograms to 83 kilograms and back down to 81 kilograms. Right now, my weight of 80 kilograms is perfect for me. So how did my exercise change? I was lifting a lot of weights back then, and it was my primary exercise. I had 1.5 hour workouts 4 to 5 times a week. Today, I'm doing resistance training only 3 to 4 times a week for 45 minutes each. That's half as much as before. I'm now doing more cardio than I was before. I do zone 2 cardio for 60 minutes twice a week, and I have a 20 to 30 minute HIIT workout once a week. 5 years ago, I just did zone 2 cardio once a week for 45 minutes. The reason I changed my workout plan was because there was a series of studies published a few years ago that showed how doing more moderate intensity exercise provides greater reduction in mortality and heart disease than vigorous exercise, and that too much resistance training might be potentially harmful. The changes I've made to my exercise routine are based on the interpretation I've made from those studies. And based on my biomarkers and overall health, it was the right decision to namely do a little bit less weightlifting and a bit more cardio. You obviously want to do both resistance training and cardio. It's found that while resistance training alone is linked to a 21% lower mortality risk, combined with aerobic exercise, it's a 40% lower risk. So it's better to do both, rather than one or the other alone. Let's move on with the changes I've made to my diet, because some of the biggest improvements in my blood work have come from changing my foods. And to be really honest, then the single biggest change has come from me just eating a little bit less calories. Calorie restriction will improve virtually all of your biomarkers and body fat markers. It lowers visceral fat and body fat, it lowers blood sugar and insulin, it lowers lipids like ApoB and cholesterol, and it lowers inflammatory markers. Now, excessive calorie restriction and starving yourself obviously will have negative side effects. You can lose muscle tissue and strength. You can get low thyroid functioning. You can have low iron and hemoglobin, which then reduces your VO2 max. And you can just feel tired and not able to perform at your best. The key is a small calorie restriction over a longer period of time and eating a moderate amount of calories. You can also cycle this. Some time of the year you eat a little bit more calories and at other times less calories. I reduced my calorie intake from about 4,000 calories 5 years ago to 2,500 calories today. And with that, I've become much leaner and with better blood work, as I shared earlier. In terms of food changes, then I reduced my protein intake quite a lot, from 1 gram per pound or 2.2 grams per kilogram to 1.6 grams per kilogram or 0.73 grams per pound of body weight per day. 1.6 grams per kilogram is already enough to maximize muscle growth, so I don't see a reason to eat more than that. And my gym performance has stayed relatively the same. In terms of fats and carbs, then I was doing a cyclical ketogenic diet way back then, something like 7 to 8 years ago. But I had already switched to eating more carbohydrates 5 years ago. I think the carbs played a huge role in my gym performance. I was just able to exercise harder and longer, which then obviously improves your body composition. However, because I've reduced my protein intake from 2.2 grams per kilogram to 1.6 grams per kilogram, and I've also reduced my fat intake from around 120 grams to 75 grams, I'm actually eating more carbs than before, despite eating fewer calories. Reducing the protein and fat enabled me to free up more calories for carbohydrates, which has enabled me to still progress in my training. Yes, I'm a bit weaker than 5 years ago, not that much, but my other biomarkers are better, so my overall health is more balanced now. I eat about 250 to 300 grams of carbs a day from potatoes, fruit, rice, whole grains, etc. And despite that, my average blood sugar, as measured by CGM, is 4.5 millimoles per liter, which is 81 milligrams per deciliter. Because of the higher carbohydrate intake, my fiber intake is also nearly double than what it was 5 years ago, from about 25 grams to 50 grams. Fiber plays a big part in lowering lipids like ApoB and improving gut health. My protein sources are leaner and lower in fat. This has improved my lipids and insulin sensitivity. In total, I'm getting around 70 to 80 grams of fat per day, which is more than enough. I'm also eating less methionine because of my lower protein intake, and I've added 10 grams of glycine to counterbalance methionine even further. There's research that restricting methionine intake in animals extends lifespan, and that glycine supplementation extends lifespan by mimicking methionine restriction. And there's human research that methionine restriction reduces visceral fat, improves insulin sensitivity, and that low glycine status also predicts higher visceral fat. I think this has been a big reason why I've seen a reduction in my visceral fat, reducing methionine and increasing glycine. Let's talk about sleep. Sleep has played a big role in my biomarkers getting better. That's because between the ages of 20 and 28, I had a pretty hectic and short sleep schedule. I was sleeping probably around 6 hours on average, and my bedtime was too late. Don't get me wrong, my sleep scores on the Oura Ring were still okay, around 70 to 80. But since 4 years ago, I've started to sleep 7 to 8 hours more consistently. My sleep scores are now consistently over 90 and 100, and I sleep on average 7.5 to 8 hours. Here are the major changes I've made to my sleep routine. I stopped eating way earlier than I did before. Before, I ate the last meal of the day 2 hours before bed, but now I stop eating 4 to 5 hours before bed. I'm actively cooling my bed for lower body temperature and better sleep. I've been more strict with blue light blocking before bed, which has helped me to fall asleep faster. And I got married, so I tend to stay in bed for longer, because it's comfortable sleeping with your partner. What about supplements? Back then, I was testing dozens of different supplements to see if they work and what kind of changes I might have. But I've tested already most of them, so I don't need to take them again. Here are the supplements I used to take in the past. NMN and NR, resveratrol, milk thistle, zinc, boron, glucosamine, HMB, fisetin, inositol, AKG, essential amino acids, lithium, turkesterone, citrulline, chromium, and reishi. Here's what I'm taking right now. Glycine, astaxanthin, magnesium, not every day, omega-3s, collagen, TMG, and creatine, not all the time. I mentioned glycine for the methionine restriction, but trimethylglycine also played a part in reducing my homocysteine levels. Supplements can obviously work, but instead of focusing more on supplements, I focused more on balancing my workout plan, balancing my diet, and balancing my sleep cycle. And lastly, the change I made was tracking my blood work more consistently and making changes based on the results. In the past, I might have been less eager to change my routine and lifestyle based on the blood marker results, so I was a bit more stubborn back then. But over the last few years, I've implemented changes to my routines based on the available evidence, and by doing that, my biomarkers have improved, from top 15% to top 1%. If you want to know the biggest mistakes and lessons I've learned after 12 years of researching health, then check out this video next.